Folks, today I've got a special treat for you. My new friend, Peter Neuwirth. This guy is a Harvard grad, has 40 plus years of experience in the actuarial field. And a few years back, he decided to make a change in 2015. He put his focus more on financial wellness. He even published a book, What's Your Future Worth? Sharp content in there, by the way. This guy is a speaker, author, consultant, host of Money Mountaineering podcast, which also has a book, does a ton of research, writing. I believe he also consults with financial advisors and insurance agencies. And he's got a really smart and systematic way that he makes decisions based on time, risk, and money. Peter, how are you today, friend?
Oh, great. Hey, thanks so much, Charles. I really am excited to be here on your show and talk to your audience and anybody else that's we can reach.
Peter, where are you located?
I'm here in Santa Rosa, California, in Sonoma County.
Ooh, me and the wife, a month ago. Yeah, a month ago, we went to Sonoma. We went to Napa Valley and Sonoma. We did a little day tour from San Francisco out there. And one thing I did not know is that it was the hottest point on planet Earth.
Well, you probably came at just the right time.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing, Charles, you probably like to drink a little wine because we have some of the finest wines in the world here. So
you do. Most of the wine I drink comes from a box, so it was probably wasted on me. But I had a ball, my friend. We went to 3 different wineries, none of which I can remember the name of, but we had a great time.
Great. Well, there's you come back sometime again, and because we got more wineries.
I was going to say, you'll give me the tour next time. So catch us up to speed. I know most folks understand, especially my insurance folks, understand what actuary is, but gently educate the rest of us what that is and then kind of what you're doing with it.
Well, I guess I think the most accurate definition of an actuary is that person who evaluates the current financial implications of future contingent events. Because, the future is very hard to predict. In fact, it's impossible to predict. But there's lots of possibilities. And what you got to do as an actuary is evaluate the likelihood or unlikelihood of various future events, and then figure out what does that mean today.
So in looking at it, you had a big history of working with some top name brands out there. Does this extend beyond insurance? Insurance, it makes total sense. So I'm getting ready, I'm 46. If I decided to buy another life insurance policy, they're trying to determine, okay, how healthy is this guy? How long will he live? What should we charge just in case something, in case he doesn't? So how does that apply to other areas?
Well, actually, there are 2 kinds of actuaries. There's actually more than 2 kinds of actuaries, but some actuaries focus on life insurance and the contingencies associated with death and disability. And then there are others that focus on pensions and annuities.
Oh.
And I spent most of my career looking in the retirement or pension area, but also towards the end moved over and considered life insurance policies because there's a lot of interplay between the two. You can use life insurance to fund and provide assets for your retirement and for your pensions. And so there's a lot of cross-fertilization between actuaries and the 2 fields. But yes, life insurance and pensions are the two basic fields that I operate in.
So let's go back to your book. What's Your Future Worth? I know you've got some just core principles in there that you ask people to look at. Can you kind of guide us through those and then how that impacts us, not just as, maybe not just as business owners, but folks that are managing money in general?
Well, sure. I mean, my first book, What's Your Future Worth, really evaluated this concept of present value, which is what is this current implications of what might happen in the future. And I provide a recipe in that book for kind of determining what the value or the present value of making one decision versus another. And then you just look at those 2 values and you pick the one that's better. But when I was talking to folks, and I talked to a bunch of folks about the ideas in that book, all the questions I got was, how do I make better financial decisions?
Right.
And so that's why I wrote the second book, which is called Money Mountaineering, which has basically 6 principles to help you make better financial decisions, some of which relate to present value, but some of which just relate to what you have currently in front of you.
Do you have and this is putting you on the spot, do you have an example from the book or just one that you've used before that kind of walks through those principles?
Well, sure. I mean, like I said, I got 6 principles, and number 2 is that whenever you're looking at your financial life, you gotta be very attentive to not just the assets you have and how you're going to invest them, but also what do you owe? What's your debt like? And there are a lot of advisors and a lot of people out there who'll say, well, debt is really bad. And then there's some who'll say, no, debt is good. You should borrow money to buy real estate and get rich that way. Well, the truth is, and this is principle number 2, is that debt is neither good nor bad, and it depends on your situation. Debt can amplify and enhance the financial returns you might make on your assets, but it can also make you fragile and make it pretty dangerous. If you're overly leveraged and those assets go down, you could be in a lot of trouble, as we saw in 2008 and 2009,
Right.
when the real estate market cratered.
Like we might be seeing here soon.
Well, we don't know. I mean,
No. That's right. You can't predict the future.
well, my view is that the past doesn't always repeat itself, but it sometimes echoes. And we are seeing some echoes of the 70s and 80s with the financial, the energy crisis in the early 70s and the energy crisis today. And I don't think we've ever had anything quite like the pandemic, or at least not in my memory.
Sure.
But there's a lot of circumstances that are sort of echo those 70s and 80s period.
I thought you were going to go with the Mark Twain. Sometimes it rhymes, but you got your own. It echoes. I like that. So if you're looking at, so you said there's 6. Number 2 is debt, and I may have skipped it. What was the first one?
Well, the first one is that everybody's different. Everybody is unique. I mean, the way when I talk to groups of financial planners, for example, I say, if you've seen one financial plan, you've seen one financial plan.
Right.
I mean, because not only are we unique in terms of our financial circumstances, what we have, what we owe, but we're also unique in all of the other aspects of our life. Who we have, who depend on us, how old we are, how healthy or not healthy we are, so therefore how long we're going to live, and probably most important, what each of us wants and fears and needs. Okay. So if there's some people who live for today and just value what's immediate and current, but there's some people who plan for the future, and so every financial plan and every strategy really needs to account for who you are as a unique individual.
So I'm unique. Debt may or may not be helping depending on my situation. What's number 3?
Number 3 is that it's a damn noisy world. There's lots and lots of people out there giving you advice, and you got to be very, very attentive to the advice you get, because not everybody has your best interest at heart. Not everybody knows what they're talking about, and even if they do, they may only know one aspect of it. So yes, you absolutely need advice and you need help, but get advice for what you need, for the specific area you need, and make sure that the individual that you're getting advice from, their interests and your interests are aligned, that they have your best interests at heart. And so that's principle number 3.
All right. So I'm getting the right advice from the right person. So let's say and I should have started with this. So if I'm looking at trying to make my own financial decisions and I'm trying to decide let's say for me, I'm a full-time business coach, but I also have a part-time, now full-time businesses doing explainer videos, and then I'm going to add some additional business coaching outside of the a side hustle to the side hustle. If I'm trying to decide and make a financial decision as to one day when I do all of that full time, so far I've got to realize everybody is different. Secondarily, I don't necessarily, I don't know if I need to take on a bunch of debt yet or take on no debt because I'm different. Going back to principle one. Thirdly, it's a damn noisy world, so I just can't take any and everybody's advice. I have to align myself with two or three other people that understand that. So what's step four?
Well, step four, the fourth principle really gets back to what we talked about at the beginning, and what I talked about in my first book, which is that the future is really unknown. It's just impossible to predict, but it is possible to imagine. And so you really got to imagine possibilities and stay flexible enough to accommodate each of those potential possibilities. So that's principle four. But I wanted to actually jump to principle five because
Okay.
what you just said, Charles, was a perfect example of principle five, which is, I mean, it has a word that nobody knows, but it's called make yourself anti-fragile. And what anti-fragile means is that if something unpleasant or some volatility or turbulence comes into your life, make sure you're set up to come out of that stronger. And the way you do that is exactly what you're doing, Charles. You get many irons in the fire. You have lots and lots of possibilities out there.
Sure.
So I advise, and it's really like I said, it's basic advice that I got from my father. Just keep a lot of
Right.
irons in the fires, and one of them might ignite.
And your father, from what I quickly read, a British mathematician?
Well, he's an American mathematician.
American. I don't know where I got the British part, but he's a mathematician nonetheless, and he felt like that was his calling.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe yours.
Well, I guess. I mean, I grew up in a pretty academic household. He was a theoretical mathematician in Princeton, New Jersey, and yeah. So he asked me to add up the numbers from 1 to 100 when I was 5 years old.
Oh, God.
And so it was a little bit of an unusual upbringing, but he gave me a perspective on life that has been pretty useful
Apparently. What is 1 through 100 added up?
Well, there's a trick which he helped me figure out, which is you add 1 in 100. Well, actually, you add 1 in 99 and you get 100. Now
Right.
you add 2 in 98 and you get 100. So you just keep doing that all the way up to 49 and 51. So you got 49 100. So it's 4,900 plus that 100, and that's what you got.
Who knew? What? See, that's a neat. I'm gonna trick that with my kids. They'll love that. Got a 9-year-old that's big into math.
I was going to say, wait till they're a little older than 5, because that was too young to introduce that concept to me, I think. But
yeah, I've got a couple of math whizzes that are already making me look bad. So that'll be a nice little trick in my pocket. So look, we're going back. I'm step 1 through 5. And I'm different. I may or may not need debt. Got my advice right. I've got to imagine the different possibilities and put myself in a position where I can withstand each of the possibilities. That's 4. Make myself anti-fragile, which is essentially saying that if I go through probably, let's say, one of the worst possibilities from 4, that I can not just go through it, but come out stronger. So where does that leave me at 6?
Well, 6 is where is in some ways the most important, which is that recognize that we are, as humans, we are not completely rational calculators. I mean, we are full of all kinds of biases, and we were not evolved to choose between fixed and variable rate mortgages,
Right.
life annuities, joint and survivor annuities. We were evolved to
Look for saber-toothed tigers.
Look for saber-toothed tigers. Okay, so you probably heard that before, but that's really the issue. So and we have all kinds of biases and all kinds of cognitive um, flaws, and we have to be aware of them, and that's when we have to recognize that circles back to principle 3, which is recognize your limitations, recognize when you're not equipped to figure something out, and get help. So get help on the things you need.
Good deal. So let's take a quick turn here, pivot to kind of what you do for a living. So you went from being a full-time actuary, you had jobs, and now you're working with other people for yourself. What are you doing more of now than anything else? Are you doing more one-on-one consulting and coaching for financial advisors, insurance agents? Are you doing more speaking? What does your business model look like?
Well, and it's interesting. It kind of depends on the day, as
Okay,
probably it's the same with you, Charles.
sure.
Um, so for this week I've been doing a lot of podcasts. So
Okay,
and that's not remunerative, but it does get it's kind of gets my brand out, if you
sure,
will. And then I spend a fair amount of time doing research because I have to develop the content for what I do. And then beginning uh, in, I guess, next Tuesday, I go on the road, and that's when I'm going to be going to speaking to groups and speaking at a conference of consulting actuaries in Austin next week, and then we're going to be at the Society of Actuaries in Orlando later, and giving, like I said, so there's a period that I have stretches where I'm sort of in my office just with my whiteboard and my
hmm,
collaborators trying to develop the content and developing the presentations, and then I take them on the road or broadcast from here, and from a business model standpoint, I guess going to places pays a little bit more, but
sure.
it's a little more exhausting and than a Zoom webinar. But that's basically the model is a little of this, a little of that, and it
Sure.
all cobbles together.
How many folks do you have on your team?
Well, at this point, I just have an executive assistant, kind of jack of all trades,
Sure.
who helped me get the technology working today. But he also he helps me with a lot of my other projects and spreadsheets and so forth.
Sure.
And then I have a publicist that's out there, and then I have. I guess I wouldn't call them people on my crew. These are kind of collaborative partners, people that are research assistants, and then I have a few organizations that provide me support. I have a group in Florida, CapAcuity, which is an executive benefits consulting firm that provides me support, technical and other words, out of Florida. I've got another organization based out of San Mateo. That's an actuarial consulting firm that I sit on the board
Hmm.
for, and then I've got the University of Illinois, which has also been supportive of my research and efforts. So I try to make myself anti-fragile.
I got you.
I have a different partners and different support mechanisms, but again, only two people that really are working with me on a
Sure.
consistent, regular basis.
So let me ask you a loaded question. If somebody were to take anything, one pivotal piece of advice for making a future financial move, whether that was in their career, business, their retirement, what would be one thing they would really need to consider from an actuarial standpoint that they're probably not doing enough of?
they're probably not looking at their situation holistically, because what people have a tendency to do is look at one piece or another, and what might be right for one piece of the puzzle might not be the right move for the puzzle as a whole. So I guess if there would be one piece of advice, it would be take a big step back
Hmm.
and survey your entire situation, your entire business, and where are the sources of revenue, where are the sources of expense, where are the things that are draining your time. Just kind of because it's all about, again, to my mind, business boils down to balancing time, risk, and money, and
Right.
that's basically what my website is about. Because and before you can balance time, risk, and money, you got to really understand where you are spending your time, where you are spending your money, where are you getting your money, and where are the risks? Where are the risks to each of those things? Where's the risk that you're going to spend more time than you thought? Where's the risk that you're going to not make as much money as you thought?
Right.
But like I said, assessment and diagnosis is probably the biggest thing that I would recommend.
Big kick I've been on with a lot of the small business owners I work with is to track what they're doing all day long. So many times they'll come in to see me talking about they don't have enough time or they don't have enough money and want to learn more about time blocking and time management. And before we get into any of this, well, kind of how are you spending your time now? Most folks have a gut feeling, but they don't know until they start tracking it minute by minute. And I say developed, it's a spreadsheet of how that looks. And the people
Mm-hmm.
that will actually do it, big eye opener. Not always positive, but always a big eye opener as to how their day is being eaten up.
Well, you know what? My sister, who's she was a Broadway actor for quite a while. She's still an actor, and she was in a show one time, and the show was in trouble, and it was going to open the next day, and the director came to the whole crew and cast and said, "Now we got a lot to accomplish today, so let's everybody slow down." And so what I do every morning, I usually start work at about 6 in the morning, and this, I guess, would say this is how I start my day. Is I make myself a cup of coffee, and then I just sit and I drink that cup of coffee for as long as it takes. Sometimes it's 20
Yeah.
minutes, sometimes it's a half hour, sometimes it's 45 minutes, and just consider, what have I got in front of me? How am I going to spend this day? Maybe even what have I got this week? And I think your spreadsheet is a great idea, and I wish I had the discipline to do something like that. So I have to rely on just
Yeah.
lists and, like I
Sure.
said, that morning cup of coffee.
That morning cup of coffee. That's one very consistent piece of advice I've gotten over and over and over and over. Folks that are really, that are successful like you are, and they all have different morning routines, but it'll be sit quietly. Some it's meditation, prayer, reading,
Right.
journaling, having a cup of coffee, watching the sunrise, whatever it is. But they're clearing the deck in their mind, thinking of possibilities, and just letting everything slow down before they take off for the day.
Exactly.
Your sister, that's not BB Neuwirth?
BB North. Yeah. Right.
That's your sister?
That's my sister. Yeah.
We're talking about from Cheers.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
You should have led with that, Peter. Holy cow.
Well, I try not to, I tell you, I have one story of her that, because, she's very much in the public eye, and
Mhm.
that's been, it's been a little strange to
Sure.
grow up with a sister that famous. But I remember one time she came to me and she said, I had the best day today. A guy came up to me on the street and said, "Hey, I know you. I recognize you. You're Neuwirth's sister." And it was a high school friend that had just run into her on the
Lord.
and she said that made her life. So she's in the public eye, but I try not to I try
Sure.
not to ride on her
Try
coattail.
not to, well, hey, for those of you who don't know, if I and correct me if I'm wrong, that's Dr. Lilith Crane.
Yeah.
Fraser Crane's wife, but she did so well. She got a few storylines on Cheers as well. But either way, that's a cool fact.
Yeah.
So in wrapping up here, we talked. You've got a couple of books. What's a book that you recommend to other people, actuarial or not, but maybe that's good in the decision making realm
Yeah.
or just in general?
Well, I mean, the book I recommend to people, it's a tough book, is Anti-Fragile by Nassim Taleb.
Okay.
He invented that term, and he invented that field to a large degree. And that's the book I'd recommend. But the book I'm reading right now, and it's a book by a collaborator of mine, which I think is just fantastic. Is a book called, it's a new book, just came out, called Quit by Annie Duke. And
Okay.
and Annie Duke was a professional poker player, and she's a wonderful thinker. And like I said, she actually wrote the foreword to Money Mountaineering. And her first book, Thinking in Bets, is also a wonderful book. But her latest book, Quit, is really something that I'm very much enjoying, and I'd recommend it very strongly.
I will check that out. I like the concept. Peter, how can somebody get in touch with you if they need to?
Well, you can just email me, and I respond to emails, and it's PeteNeuwirth@gmail.com. Or you can just go to my website, and then you'll find out more about me. But if you really want to get a hold of me, just email me, because I respond.
There you go. That's the easy way to do it. Peter, I appreciate your time today, my friend. You have a lovely afternoon and drink a glass of wine for me.
All right. Thanks a lot, Charles.
All right.
It's
Have a
been a
good
real
one.
pleasure.